Hello friends, welcome to my channel Anand Gyanpur, and here I come with this new topic, heat transfer and application. This is my first technical video for the Department of Mechanical Engineering students who are doing the BTech in Mechanical Engineering and the students who are doing the GATE preparation. So this is very interesting topic of the Mechanical Engineering, heat transfer and application. So this is my channel Anand Gyanpur. Kindly like, subscribe and share my channel to get more and more updates about the another topics like breaking news, new notifications for government jobs, as well as the technical topics. So let's continue our video. So heat transfer and application, it's a very good topic to discuss for that mechanical engineering. Now further move to that our main heat transfer and application. So here, heat transfer. What is heat? First of all, heat always moves from a warmer place to a colder place. Hot objects in a colder room will cool to room temperature. Cold object in a warmer room will heat up to the room temperature. So heat always transfer from one temperature to another temperature, and the transfer of heat from one temperature to another is called the heat transfer. And always whenever the temperature difference, there will be the heat transfer. So this is the main point which we know, that heat always move from warmer place to colder, and hot object to colder room, and cold object. So always it depends on the temperature of the surrounding. Whatever the temperature of the surrounding, always the heat transfer takes place. Now the first question comes that if a cup of coffee and a red popsicle were left on a table in this room, what would happen and why? So the thing is that here we have two objects, one is hot coffee and another is red popsicle. So one is hot and another is cold. So what will happen if you left that part objects in that room? So the reply and the answer will be, the cup of coffee will cool until it reaches room temperature, the popsicle will melt, and then the liquid will warm to room temperature. It's mean it depends totally on the room temperature and the surrounding. Whatever the surrounding temperature will be there, the object will change their heat transfer. So the cup of coffee will be get cold, it reaches to the room temperature, and the popsicle will melt, and then liquid will warm to the room temperature. So all the phenomena will depends on your surrounding. Whatever the temperature of your surrounding, the object will take place, and there will be the heat transfer. Now we will discuss that heat transfer method, by which mode the heat transfer takes place. So heat transfer takes place by three ways: conduction, convection and radiation. So conduction, what is conduction? When you heat a metal strip at one side, the heat travels to the another end. As you heat the metal, the particle vibrates. This vibration make the adjacent particles vibrate, and so on, so that the vibration are passed along the metal, and so is the heat. We call this conduction. So whenever we hot the metal strip, the electrons goes vibrate, and due to the vibration the electrons move from one place to another place, and by the vibration takes place, the electrons move from one side to another side. So our metal strip get heat, and this phenomena is called the conduction. Now here is the another example. Metals are different. The outer electrons of the atoms drift and are free to move. Here you can see the internal molecular structure of this steel plate, and the red spots, small spots, that are electrons. So the outer electrons of metal atoms drift and are free to move. Whenever we heat the metal strip, the electrons moves and get vibrates. So by the vibration, that electrons move from one place to another place. So the movement of this electrons that takes place, this hit the metal strip, and this phenomena is called the conduction. So when the metal is heated, the C of the electrons gains a kinetic energy, and they transfer it through the metal. So like an insulator such as wood and plastics don't have the C of electrons, which is why they don't conduct heat as well as metals. So as we know, conductor and insulator, conductors who have their electrons, so the movements of the electrons that make the temperature difference, and that's why they have the conductivity, but the insulator materials like wood, plastics, they don't have the free electrons or electrons, so that's why they are called insulators. So here is a question: why does metal feels colder than wood if they are both at the same temperature? As you know that metal feels cold and the wood don't feel cold. So why this happened when we take already on the same temperature? So here is that metal is a conductor, as you know already discussed that metal is a conductor, wood as in insulator, because metal is a conductor due to electrons, wood have an insulator because due to they have no electrons. So metal conducts the heat away from your hand, wood does not conduct the heat away from your hand as well as metal. So the wood feels warmer than the metal. As you know that metal have the conductor, so they have the free electrons, so that movement of the electrons that feels conduct the heats from your body to the metal body. But insulator like that as a wood, plastic, they don't have the electrons, so they didn't feel cold or the temperature difference because they don't have the electrons for the moment. Now the phenomena second comes with the convection. First was the conduction, second is the convection. So when the particles like convection, when what happens to the particles in a liquid or a gas when you heat up them. So here is a particle shown like a liquid in a water. The movement of that electrons when we heat up the electrons, that's a movement, and the movement of that electrons they lose their density, because in the colder object there is a more density, but in a warmer object there is a less density. Now the particles spread out and becomes less dense when we heat up the liquid objects that lose their density, and by this affect fluid movement. So what is fluid? Either this is liquid or a gas. So here you can see that when they heat up the particles of that liquid molecules, that goes heat up and lose their density, but that the particles when we sink up, when we cool it, that sinks and their density goes high. So in the cooler more density fluid sinks through the warmer less dense fluid. In effect, warmer liquid and gases rise up, colder liquid and gases sinks. Okay, so here is a very good example of the refrigerator. As every home there is a refrigerator. Do you know that how the refrigerator works? So where is the freezer compartment put in the fridge? Do you know that freezer compartment? Always the freezer compartment in the single door fridge is on the top side. Why we put the freezer compartment on the top side? So here is the answer. It is put at the top side because cools air sinks, so it cools the food on the way down. Now it is a warmer at the bottom, so this warmer air rises and convection current is set up. As you know that hot air have the less density and the cold air have the high density. So on the hot air density it comes up and the colder air comes down. So by this up and down the convection flow comes up and down and the convection currents comes in the phenomena. So the refrigerator, that the freezer compartment is on the top side. When the hot air comes on the top, the freezer compartment makes it cools, and again that hot air comes in the cool, so it goes down, and again the hot air comes upside and then go down. So by this phenomena the circular phenomena is comes, and here the object comes cool. So by this phenomena this refrigerator takes place. So this is the basic phenomena and principles of this refrigeration cycle. Now the third object, that is third phenomena, comes with the radiation. First was conduction, second is the convection, and third is the radiation. So how does heat energy get from the sun to earth? Is there any medium? Is there any path, or is there any travel object? There is no particle between the sun and the earth, so it cannot travel by conduction or a convection, because from sun to earth there is no path of that conduction medium or a convection medium, because there is vacuum, there is no air from sun to earth. So that comes with that radiation. So now understand the radiation. What is the radiation phenomena? Radiation travels in straight line. As you know already discussed that radiation travels in straight line. Yes, radiation travels in straight line. Now second is radiation can travel through a vacuum. Yes, radiation can travel through a vacuum because the sunlight comes from vacuum to earth, so radiation can travel through a vacuum. Now third point, radiation requires particles to travel. Is there any requirement of particles? No, there is no requirement of particles to travel the radiation. Now fourth question, radiation travels at the speed of light. Yes, radiation travels at the speed of light. Now here is the very good example of the emission experiment. Now as you know the all the topics we discussed, now here is a very best example, like 4 containers were filled with a warm water. Which container would have the warmest water after 10 minutes? So there is a 4 object: shiny metal, dull black and shiny black. Now here is that point, emission experiment means which body emits the maximum energy from their body. So for the emission, which is the best phenomena? Shiny metal, dull black or shiny black? So here is the answer, the shiny metal, because shiny metal emits the maximum energy because they don't absorb the heat, so they emits all the heat comes on that surface or the body. So the shiny metal container would be the warmest after 10 minutes because its shiny surface reflects heat radiation back into the container, so less heat lost. Now the dull black container would be the coldest because it is the best at the heat radiation. Now dull black absorbs the maximum energy which comes on that object, and the hot water which is filled with that dull black object, that comes with the cold. Now would be the coldest because the best in the emitting heat radiation, and the dull black will be the best for that emitting radiation. Okay, now here is the another example with absorption experiment. Which is the best object for the absorption, means which object absorbs the maximum heat energy? Now here is that 4 containers were placed equidistant from a heater. Which container would have the warmest water after 10 minutes? Now here is that shiny metal, dull black and shiny black. So which is the absorption capacity maximum? Exactly, the dull black. The dull black container would be the warmest after 10 minutes because its surface absorbs heat radiation the best because it is a dull black and it absorbs all the heat radiation which comes on that body. And the shiny metal container would be the coldest because it is the poorest at the absorbing heat, because shiny metal don't absorb the heat radiation, so it will be the coldest. Okay, now some of the question for that convection related. Why does hot air rise and cold air sink? As we discussed, why does hot air rise and cold air sink? Cold air is more dense than warmer air, so the air falls through the warm air. As we discussed on the refrigerator example, that the hot air comes up and the cold air goes down, so the cold air is more dense than the warm air. Now second question, why are boilers placed beneath hot water tanks in people's home? Okay, hot water rises and it comes up, so where the boilers heat the water and the hot water rises, the water tank is filled with hot water. Okay, now the question comes with the radiation. Why are houses painted white in hot countries? Why the houses paint white in hot countries? Okay, white reflects heat radiation and keep the house cold. As we already discussed in the last example, that shiny metal absorbs less heat and black object absorbs maximum heat. So that's why in that hot countries that puts the light paint on their outer wall, so that reflects the heat radiation and keep the house cold. Now the second question, why are shiny foil blanket wrapped around the marathon runner at the end of the race? Most of time you seen that after the running just comes the finish point, that marathon runners at the end of that race, they cover with the blanket. So why this cover with the blanket? Because the shiny metal reflects the heat radiation from the runner backside, and this stops the runner getting cold. When that runner just stop, so what happens, its body goes in radiation because of the temperature difference, but that radiation makes the ill to that runner, so they cover with that blanket. So the shiny metal reflects the heat radiation from the runner's back, and this stops the runner getting cold. Now first question is that which of the following is not a method of heat transfer? Okay, we discussed already which of the following is not the method of heat transfer: conduction, convection and radiation. So insulation is not in this heat transfer mode. Now second question, in which of the following are the particles closest together? In which of the following particles closest together? Okay, right answer is solid, because in the solid all the intermolecular bonds have their tight bonding, so there the distance between the electrons very less compared to liquid, gas and fluid. Now the third question is, how does heat energy reach the earth from the sun? We shown the example, so what is the answer? The answer will be radiation. So the medium which comes from the heat energy from the sun to earth is at radiation. Now the fourth question, which is the best surface for reflecting heat radiation? Best reflecting surface. Best reflecting surface means that is shiny white. So shiny white will reflect all the heat energy which comes on that object. Now fifth question is, which is the best surface for absorbing heat radiation? Best absorbing surface. So best absorbing surface is dull black. Dull black will absorb all the heat. So in that winter time most of the people use dark clothes, so the heat energy will absorb on their body and the body makes warm. Okay, so thank you for this all the video and all the discuss point of that heat transfer. If you have any query or related to any point, you can discuss and you can leave a message in the description. Thank you, and kindly like and subscribe my channel for this technical all the videos. Anand Gyanpur. Thank you.